welcome into the first edition of I'm Bored, Why the Hell Not, where we're going to talk a little sports and a little media here for you today. Let's start with the Royals' Big Four. It's going to be the big question throughout the course of this season. Well, the big question is if they don't get going and get into the playoff hunt, what to do with these four? Who can you sign? Who do you trade? Well, first of all, if you don't get in the hunt, trade them all. But trade them all with a little handshake deal behind the scenes that says, we might want some of you guys back. My order when it comes to the Big Four, Moustakas, then Hosmer, then Kane, then Escobar. In fact, Escobar would even be on the list. I know he's one of the four, but just swipe him away. Because if Raul Mondesi isn't the answer at shortstop in the future, you're probably already effed anyway. So, let's just consider Escobar out. Let's worry about the other three. Kane, number 3 on my list. Unless you can get him for a really good price for a very few years. He's just too injury prone. He's already getting up there in age, and I don't think he's ever going to show the superstar abilities and numbers that he showed a couple of years ago when he was in the MVP race. His defense is his by far number 1 skill, and that will deteriorate as his legs get older. Hosmer, number 2. Why number 2 for Hosmer? Well, quite honestly, I don't think you're going to be able to afford him. I'm not sure the Royals are going to pay $120 million, and somebody's going to. Even with his struggles this year, somebody like the Mets, who needs a first baseman and who saw what he did to them in the World Series, is going to overpay. Somebody's going to tell somebody about what a great leader he was during the World Baseball Classic, and they're going to get ownership to pay. I just don't think the Royals can afford him. So that leaves you with Moustakas, the one guy I think you can afford, and quite honestly, the guy who I think might be the better player over the course of his career. If healthy, I think he'll hit more home runs than Hosmer will. I think he's got a better home run stroke, and at least for now, he plays a more premium position. And as he ages, if you need him to play first base, he can. Moustakas, also maybe not the leader in the clubhouse as far as on camera that Hosmer is, but he is one of the fiery leaders. A little bit of the red A in the clubhouse, I think that's needed on this ball club as well. Second point, Chiefs draft. That's coming up in just a couple of days. What do the Chiefs need? Well, at the end of it, they're going to get one of everything. I mean, they've got so many picks this year. They're likely to take a lineman, offensive and defense. They're going to take a linebacker. They're going to take a corner. Probably going to take a quarterback somewhere in there, and they'll get a running back as well. So they're going to get pretty much every position. What should be their focus? In my opinion, it's old school. Run the ball, stop the run. They need a better running game to go with Alex Smith, take the pressure off Alex Smith. We see that Tyreek Hill can be a weapon. We know that Travis Kelce can be a weapon, and we know Jeremy Maclin has a history in this league. They've got some playmakers through the air. They need somebody who can pound the ball. Conversely, they need somebody who can stop the run. Too many times last year, teams were able to eat up fourth quarters. Jacksonville was able to do that against you. You've got to get better against the run. Benny Logan's going to help, but they've lost Poe. They've lost Jay Howard. And who knows what Derek Johnson will be like when he comes back. They've got to find a way to stop the run, whether that's another interior defensive lineman or a stud linebacker. They've got to find a way to stop the run and be able to get teams off the field late in games. And finally, media. Why not? Everybody wants me to comment on them, right? Well, I'll start with this. Not something that's actually on the air, but something that's on the web. If you're going to have blogs, have blogs. If not, take it off your website. And if you're going to have your blog just linked to a podcast, just link it to your podcast. Have your podcast page. Don't send somebody to your blog page thinking, oh, I'm going to find some new content. Oh, no, just a link to the podcast that I've already listened to on the podcast page. Here's an example. Looking at the websites the last couple of days, the Border Patrol on 810, the last post was in March. On the program with Soren Petro, the last post was about a couple of weeks ago, but at least this month in April, between the lines, January. On the other station, 610 Sports, Fesco does a nice job. The last couple of weeks, he's had a couple of blog posts, but they've simply been basically talking about what they've talked about on the air and linked to podcasts. No new original content. Thumbs up, Jay Binkley with some new original content as he's talking about the draft this week. His post on the front page of 610 Sports, good original content. Although if you go to the show page, again, the last post was from back in March. And on the drive, they've got a couple of posts from the last few weeks, but again, just linking to podcasts on the show, no new original content. Radio does what radio does. You're really good about doing things on the air. Focus your website on the podcast. Get people to listen to you more often. Don't try to be a round peg in a square hole. Don't try to make blogs when there are no blogs. Don't try to have a blog page if nobody's going to blog. Just eliminate them. Thanks for listening to the first, and hey, let's be honest, maybe last ever episode of this, but I was bored, so why the hell not?